Have you ever wondered why you wait? Why are your actions dependent on others, on their response, on their reaction? Why is your inner world always in tension until you get confirmation? What if I told you that all of this is a waste of time and life energy? All you need to change the situation is to stop waiting. Don't ask when you can take more. What if you just start acting without waiting for the world's response? The time you waste waiting will never come back. In this video, we will discuss how to break free from dependence on the opinions of others, how to stop asking and start acting. Learn to build your life based on your own strength and the principles of Stoicism, and free yourself from the chains that expectations place on you. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Your support inspires me to create more videos for you. Each of us is familiar with the feeling when we don't get a response. We wait, maybe for someone's reaction, maybe for approval or support. This waiting is where the problem lies. We lose our freedom and control. When we depend on external factors for approval, we give our power to someone else. We don't resolve the situation. We just wait for someone or something to change our state. But how often does it happen that we don't get an answer? This is the reality we face, but we're not always ready to accept it. We try to manipulate circumstances, we ask, we beg, but in most cases, silence remains our only response. We don't see what's happening, and we start to think the problem lies with us. Waiting turns into inaction, and inaction turns into fear. We depend on external sources of approval, and this stops us from moving forward. In such situations, it's important to understand one simple thing. If we can't control how others react, why not focus on controlling what we can change? Expectations pull us into cycles where we can't act and can't develop. We put our lives on pause, waiting for permission, while time slips away. We are consumed by waiting, but in reality, we're standing still. We can't move forward until we get permission. This isn't freedom, it's dependence. Every moment we spend waiting is tightly connected to our self-esteem. When we wait for a response, we raise the stakes on needing approval from others, and this directly affects how we evaluate ourselves. Every refusal or silence is perceived as confirmation of our insignificance. We begin to doubt ourselves, thinking we're not good enough to get attention or recognition. Our inner voice tells us, "You're not worth it." But this is simply the result of giving control to someone else. Silence, rejection, ignoring us, all of this strikes at our self-respect. We feel our emotions overwhelm us, and we lose our inner stability. But why does waiting have such a strong impact on our self-esteem? Because we fail to see that we create our own self-image through the lens of others' decisions. We stop believing in our worth and start relying on external signals that may or may not come. And when they don't come, our whole world begins to fall apart. Stoicism teaches us not to depend on the external world. The principles of Stoicism suggest that we should only control what is within our power, and the reactions of others are things we cannot change. This frees us from dependence and returns our power to us. Instead of waiting, we begin to act based on what is important to us. We stop seeking approval from others and begin to seek it within ourselves. Self-respect begins with the realization that we are enough, regardless of how others perceive us. We cannot allow ourselves to be victims of others' expectations. When we stop depending on the opinions of others, we restore our own value. It's not the opinion of others, but our actions and goals that define our self-esteem. The moment we start acting instead of waiting, an immediate liberation happens. It's like stepping into a new reality where we are not dependent on external factors, but rely on our own strength. When we stop waiting, we find ourselves at the point where we can control our lives. Not external approval, but our own confidence becomes the source of our forward movement. We begin to understand that real success comes from action, not from the recognition of others. Why is this so important? Because if you continue to wait, you are wasting your time. Everything that goes into waiting will never come back. This is one of the biggest lessons of Stoicism. Control over ourselves and our actions is the only thing we have. The external world may be uncontrollable, but our inner world and our actions are what we can change. When we stop waiting, we start seeing opportunities where we didn't notice them before. We begin to make decisions based on our principles and goals, not on expectations from others. This shift from waiting to acting is a step toward independence and confidence. The Stoics claim that the only thing that truly depends on us is our actions, our reactions to what happens, our ability to move forward despite the circumstances. When we act, we are no longer just waiting for life, we are building it. It's important to understand that expectations keep us in chains. They create the illusion that we cannot move forward until we get the right response or reaction. But in reality, we can move forward without these external signals. This is the key to freedom, to act without being attached to the reactions of others. Stoicism, a philosophy that originated in ancient Greece, teaches us one fundamental principle. We cannot control what happens around us, but we can control our reaction to it. This gives us a powerful tool to overcome expectations and rejections. The Stoics taught that we should not be dependent on the opinions of others and should not allow external circumstances to determine our inner state. Instead of waiting for approval or reaction, we learn to rely on ourselves and our inner strength. When we face rejection or silence, Stoicism helps us understand that this is just an external event that has no bearing on our inner freedom. We do not need to react to the outside world to feel complete. The Stoics believed it was important to accept everything that happens without fear, without regret, and without attachment to the result. We can only control our thoughts and actions. Everything else is beyond our influence. This knowledge frees us from the fear of rejection. When we are not afraid of rejection, we become free. We stop being slaves to the decisions of others. Instead of asking or waiting, we begin to act independently, relying on our willpower and the principles of Stoicism. We learn to accept rejection as an inevitable part of life that has no power over us unless we allow it. The essence of Stoicism is learning not to depend on what happens to us externally. We cannot control other people, but we can control how we respond to their actions. This frees us from pain, disappointment, and resentment that often arise when we expect something from others. One of the main principles of Stoicism is focusing only on what is within our control. This teaching becomes especially relevant when we face rejections and disappointments. Instead of wasting our energy fighting what we cannot change, we should focus on what we can truly control. This not only relieves stress, but it also opens the path to action. When we expect something from other people, we are essentially giving them control over our lives. We hope for their recognition, but it's not in our hands. If they don't respond, if they ignore us, we lose control. Stoicism teaches us to take back that control. We can control our actions, our thoughts, and our emotions. That is our realm of power. By focusing on what we can control, we stop depending on the opinions of others. This becomes the foundation for making decisions, achieving our goals, and finding fulfillment in life. When we stop wasting energy worrying about what others cannot give us, we begin to move forward with greater determination. We can control how we behave, how we react to rejection, and what steps we take in response. When we stop waiting, we start acting. Failure is not the result of rejection, but the result of not taking action. The principle of Stoicism helps us understand that what matters is not the external world, but our ability to react to it without losing our inner balance. Inner strength and self-sufficiency are what Stoicism strives for. The Stoics taught that strength lies not in expecting help from the external world, but in finding this strength within ourselves. External circumstances, other people, their opinions, all of this is fleeting. But our inner strength is always with us, something we can develop and control. When we learn to rely on ourselves, we stop being dependent on the outside world. Rejection, silence, failures, all of this stops affecting us because we understand that it has no bearing on our inner strength. We stop seeking external approval because we are confident in our own abilities. Stoicism teaches us to be self-sufficient, independent, and confident in ourselves. How do we develop this strength? First and foremost, it is important to learn to accept everything that happens with gratitude. The Stoics taught that every event is an opportunity for growth. When we encounter rejection or negativity, we should use it as a lesson. Rejection should not break us. It should make us stronger. It is not defeat, but an opportunity to improve ourselves. We create our own reality, our reactions, and our perception of the world. When we accept this truth, we become free. We are not dependent on what others think of us. We don't seek approval, and we are not afraid of rejection. We build our lives ourselves, and this gives us true strength. Time is the most valuable resource we have. It passes, and we cannot get it back. However, when we find ourselves in a state of waiting, we are essentially losing that time. We wait for others to respond, wait for approval, hope for change, for events that depend on external factors, and all of this time is gone forever. When we wait, we stop moving forward. We put our lives on pause. With each day of waiting, we lose valuable opportunities that could be used to move towards our goals. We depend on the reactions of others, and this is one of the biggest wastes of time. While we wait, while we hope, we don't act. And the worst part is, we get used to this state. We start to think it's normal to wait, to rely on others. Stoicism teaches us to value time because it is the one resource we cannot replenish. We can't get it back, and we can't make it longer. It is crucial to learn how to make the most of every moment. When we are not dependent on expectations, we begin to act. We start building our lives, not just waiting for them to come together. The principle of Stoicism here is to focus on what we can do in the present moment. Instead of wasting time on useless waiting, start acting. Even if others don't respond, your actions still matter. Every effort you make is a step forward. The Stoics teach us that the value of time lies in what we do with it, not in what we hope it will bring. Never forget that time is not just money or material wealth. It is the opportunity to do something meaningful, to move forward, to grow, to create, to develop. Don't wait for someone to give you permission or support. Time is slipping away, and every moment of inaction is a moment that will never return. Silence and lack of response often become sources of stress and uncertainty. We cannot control when or how others will respond to our actions, but we can control how we react to their silence. Instead of remaining in a state of waiting, it's better to learn to appreciate every moment and not waste time on futile worries. When we learn to value time, we begin to see it as a precious resource that cannot be wasted on waiting. Every day, every hour is an opportunity for growth, for achieving our goals and aspirations. The Stoics taught us mindfulness when it comes to time. They understood that in life, there is only what we can control, and time is one of the few resources that is always in our hands, but only if we start valuing it rather than wasting it on fruitless waiting. The reactions of others, silence, or rejection should not become obstacles in our path. When we accept that we will not always get the expected response, we free ourselves from dependence on the external world. This gives us the opportunity to focus on our own actions. We understand that our time is our most important wealth, and we cannot allow it to slip away just like that. Every moment of inaction is a missed opportunity. It's important to learn to be mindful of how we spend our time. Stoicism teaches us not to fear change, not to fear rejection and silence. We must accept these as part of life, but not allow them to dictate how we will live. We choose how to react. We choose how to use our time. The value of time is not in trying to control its flow, but in learning to use it in the best possible way. Every action we take, every step, is an investment in our future, an opportunity to become better. If we learn to value every moment, if we stop waiting and start acting, we will find that time is not wasted. We begin building our lives, and each moment becomes a step towards the future. When we face rejections, silence, or a refusal of our proposals, it inevitably triggers feelings of insecurity. This leads to psychological discomfort, which can undermine our self-confidence. However, Stoicism and modern psychology offer deep strategies to combat such feelings. The Stoics asserted that our reactions to the external world are what we can control. No external circumstances have power over us unless we allow them to. When we encounter rejection, it's important to understand that it's not a reflection of our value, but simply one of many possible responses to our actions. Rejection is not a verdict. It's an opportunity to draw conclusions, learn something new, adapt, and move forward. Modern psychology also supports this idea. Psychologists claim that it is important to develop psychological flexibility, the ability to adapt and change our reactions in response to external events. Psychological flexibility helps us not to perceive rejection as a catastrophe, but as an opportunity for growth. Instead of fixating on failure, we learn to shift our focus to the things we can change. This helps us avoid feelings of insecurity and maintain control over our own lives. One of the key aspects of both Stoicism and psychology is the ability to see rejection not as a threat, but as an opportunity for self-development. Rejection is not an insult, it's just part of the process. The more we view rejection as a normal step on the path to success, the easier it becomes to handle such situations. Stoicism teaches us to accept rejection as an inevitable part of life and a tool for improving ourselves. Modern psychology, on the other hand, teaches us to redirect our focus to internal resources, not external circumstances. When we stop seeking validation of our worth through rejections or approvals from others, we begin to build real confidence. We realize that our self-esteem and confidence should depend only on our actions, not on external factors. Rejection should not define who we are, and this knowledge frees us from fear. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions that influence our behavior. It especially comes to the forefront when we face rejection or a lack of response. We start to think that if we are ignored or rejected, it confirms our worst fears about ourselves. We begin to believe that we are not good enough, that we don't deserve attention or success. This inner fear and insecurity can slow down our growth and development. Stoicism helps us change our perception of rejection. It teaches us that rejection is not a reflection of our value, but simply part of life, something that shouldn't be seen as a threat. When we face rejection, instead of fearing it, we should accept it as an opportunity for growth. The Stoics teach us that external circumstances should not define our confidence. We shouldn't depend on what happens around us. All we need to do is maintain our inner balance and control. When we understand that rejection is not linked to our value as a person, we free ourselves from fear. The Stoics argued that we should understand that the only thing we can control is our thoughts and actions. Everything else is beyond our power. When we start acting, regardless of the reaction from others, we free ourselves from the burden of expectations. This knowledge helps us overcome the fear of rejection and avoid its destructive effects. Psychology also emphasizes the importance of realizing that rejection is not a catastrophe. We cannot avoid rejections. They will happen at every step. But the important point lies in how we perceive this rejection. The Stoics teach us to accept everything that happens with indifference. We should not allow rejections to create fear and paralyze us. Instead, we should view rejection as an opportunity to improve and become stronger. When we let go of fear and begin acting, despite possible rejections, we become stronger. We accept that rejection is a natural part of life, and it has no power over our confidence. We start moving forward, not fearing that we will be rejected, and we make our lives more confident and successful. Why is the topic of rejection and expectations so relevant in our time? We live in an era where communication is becoming increasingly virtual, and on social media, false illusions of life are often created. We all see how other people receive recognition, approval, and attention, and we start to perceive this as the norm. We expect others to respond to our requests or react to our actions. However, in reality, this is just an illusion, and we often face rejection, being ignored, or silence. In today's world, especially in the age of social media, we are constantly faced with ever-changing trends and pervasive ideas that we must live up to the expectations of others. But these expectations often turn out to be illusory. When we stop waiting and start acting, we free ourselves from these external trends, from societal pressure, understanding that we do not have to expect reactions or approval from others allows us to be freer and more independent. We start living not by others' rules, but by our own. It is important to learn to view each rejection as an opportunity for self-development, not as a defeat. This knowledge is especially relevant in our time when everything changes so quickly, and we must be ready for new challenges and opportunities. Now that you understand how important the ability to act is, instead of waiting, how Stoicism and philosophy help us cope with rejection, how to perceive time and use it to its fullest, it's time to conclude. Our life is not what happens to us, but how we react to it. The only thing we can control are our actions and decisions. Expectations, rejections, and silence from others are simply part of life. We cannot change the reactions of others, but we can choose how to perceive their behavior and how to use this information for our own growth. Stoicism teaches us that rejection is not the end of the road, but just part of it. We don't have to depend on external approval or recognition. Instead of living in expectation, we should learn to act. Time is a valuable resource that should not be wasted on things we cannot control. Free yourself from expectations, learn to value each moment, and your inner peace and confidence will grow. We live in a world where everything changes quickly, and we need to learn to act, not depend on others' opinions, and move toward our goals. Don't ask when you can take more. Start acting today without wasting time waiting. Every effort you make is a step toward the future, and all you need to change your life is to start taking action. You have the right to build your life on your own terms. If this video was helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your likes and comments inspire me to create new videos that will help you change your life for the better. Thank you for your attention and support.